All right. Hi, Prashanth. Welcome to Wifimilk.com, the podcast, a place where young entrepreneurs get inspired by people like you who don't just talk but take action. Yeah, so, I always let our guests introduce themselves because they do a better job than myself. So, yeah, to start, can you, introduce yourself, what you've done so far, and, why Lastbit started and how did it start?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on here. Happy to
Yeah,
be here.
no problem.
So I'm Prashanth. I'm the founder and CEO of this small company called Lastbit, and we're effectively building a global payments network that would allow anyone, anywhere to pay or get paid instantly. And all of this stuff is built on top of this thing called the Bitcoin Lightning Network. So I started this company when I was in university doing my master's in computer science in 2017. And at this point in time, I'd been working with Bitcoin for a few years, and I was studying in Switzerland. So I'm originally a national from India, and I'd moved to Switzerland to study. And one of the hardest things was, even though I'd actually been using Bitcoin, it had this promise of being that this global grand universal currency, and I actually couldn't use it to do anything. And I was basically trying to move money across borders from India to Switzerland. And at the same time, I was actually also playing with this death metal band in Germany, and we got to play like a European tour. And so every day when we traveled to a new country with like a new currency, I was basically losing money on spending like regular fiat money, and I had to like basically use money that I had in India to and move it to Europe and convert it to all of these different currencies. And I couldn't really use Bitcoin to do anything. So I basically wanted to solve this problem and start a company that would effectively solve that problem. But then it ended up becoming a much larger vision than that.
Oh wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know this part of the story. So because you were traveling within Europe and then you got that idea. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. And what age did you have? Like
Uh,
yeah.
I was about 21 when I first came up with the idea and started working on it,
Mm.
and then I dropped out of university when I just turned 22 and started building the company at the time.
Okay, cool. And like a lot of young founders have, problems related with age. Like did you have any? Like were you not taken seriously or anything like that?
Well, I guess in the beginning it was pretty hard. Like it still is to that extent. Like I'm a lot older. Like I'm 26 now, but then it still is pretty hard. Like especially given that we work in financial services and
Hmm.
we have to deal with banks and a lot of these a lot of folks in suits that are more used to like they're way more professional than we are as a team. But then it's just I mean we don't really see that as a hurdle. Like we just put it at the back of our heads, and I mean we've made it pretty far now. So.
Cool, cool. And so no major problems. Like no.
I mean, I guess I would say that it could have become a problem if you let it become a problem. I mean, we
Yeah.
realize that it is an active issue, and I mean, we have like this grand vision in mind, and we don't really care if people
Yeah.
look at us like, oh, these are like just two young kids doing dumb stuff or not.
Yeah, I feel like it's all about your attitude and how you deal with it. So yeah. And so you said the idea came from the problem, right, of exchanging currencies. Have you always wanted to build a startup, or was that problem that made you start it?
Well, actually, I wasn't sure if I wanted to build a startup, but basically, I was like 100% sure that I did not want to end up in a large company sitting at a desk, like just being a software engineer.
Yeah.
And one way or the other, I mean, I kind of just figured that this was the right way to go about things. And like looking back on it now, like that was probably the best decision I ever made. And while I was in university, I was actually working with this other startup as well. Like I was basically doing everything except studying at university, and I was trying to use my skills, like all the stuff that I'd spent the first 20 years of my life learning,
Yeah.
to do something in the real world. So I actually worked with a small fintech company in Switzerland, which is now a pretty big company. But like watching them go from like zero to like from starting from zero to go to something that's valuable, and I kind of realized like, okay, that's not that hard actually. Like I really want to try doing this thing myself, and that's how it came about.
Do you think you learned a lot in that startup before coming to building your own? Did
Yeah,
you?
absolutely.
Mhm.
I think I learned quite a lot just watching. Like I mean, I was just like I was basically like a software engineer at the company. I mean, I
Yeah.
was this young kid, but then we were just like a team of three people. So I
Oh,
got to see like what the CEO was doing, like, and like how he was talking to investors and like pitching to people, and like I got to see like a lot of the business side of the thing, business
yeah.
side of the equation, which I had not previously seen. So that was like definitely like a massive learning experience, like just validation that yeah, this. I mean, I'm pretty sure I can do this thing myself. Like it's really not
Yeah.
that hard, but yeah.
I mean, it's always hard to start a business, but yeah, but you could do
Exactly.
it. Cool. And you mentioned you quit your job. How was that moment? Like, what made you decide to quit it?
Well, so I basically like at this point at university, I'd come up with the idea, and I'd been working with this fintech company in Switzerland, and I'd also been working at university as a research assistant, like to basically cover all my living expenses and kind of like take care of myself financially and not have to rely on my parents or anyone else for money. So at that point, like when I had the idea, I basically I quit this. Like I realized like, okay, I want to go all in on this thing. Like I want to spend all my time building this company and like this idea. So I quit my research assistant position and the job, and it was just like it was a pretty exhilarating feeling, like to not have any financial support, but then
Yeah.
just like I had this cool idea at this point, and it was a ton of fun building it, and then finally decided to pull the trigger and like just
Yeah.
deregister from the university as well.
Um, and the fact of quitting, like, did you get any like I don't know, family rejection of that action, or like did you get any of that? No. Or,
Well,
like,
surprisingly, my parents were super supportive, including my brother. As you can imagine, I mean, I'm not sure if you know this, but like a lot of Indian families like usually have like this path set out for you. Like either you become like this engineer who works at like Google or Facebook or something, or you become a doctor. Like these are like usually the two paths that
or
most
really?
Indian, yeah, that's why you actually see a lot of folks. I mean, a lot of Indian engineers in the US as well. Like it's not a bad thing at all. But then my parents are actually supportive. Like they kind of they to this day I don't think they understand what I do, like what the company does. Like they're very old fashioned, but they kind of like trust me. Like okay, this guy knows what he's doing, and he seems
Yeah.
to be having fun building this company. So we're just gonna let him do it. So it was all good.
Cool. And what about like any social pressure? Because our society, I think there's a lot of pressure on going to university, finishing school. Besides your parents and your family, have you, for example, uh, does that influence you when you go to, like, let's say, seek funding or anything like that? No.
Not. I mean, actually, in Silicon Valley, it works the other way around. It's seen
Yeah.
as a bold move to do something like that and like get away with it. I mean, and like investors back us for. I mean, I don't think that's the main reason, but then they do see the value in that, like as in that. Okay, these guys are committed to what they're building.
Hmm.
But I guess yeah, definitely. Like when I did leave university, I was in like the most popular guy amongst my social circle, and like all my friends are like these guys who are like really smart guys who are like pretty successful on their own. Like they all work these corporate jobs and they make a ton of money and all that stuff. So I was not the most popular guy. Like I was probably looked at as like this dude who has no idea what he's doing, and he just like quit university, and he's probably going to like end up on the streets, But
Yeah. And so you mentioned you used to live in the US, not anymore. Now you're back in India.
yeah, so I spent about a year at Berkeley in
Okay.
between 2019 and 2020, and then as the pandemic set in, I moved back to India for like a medical thing, and just
Oh,
haven't been able to get back since.
oh. But otherwise you would be here.
Yeah, most likely I would love to live in the Bay Area. So,
Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, the Bay Area and yeah, Silicon Valley is the place to be, right, for startups. I don't know about fintech though. Is it too? Like, I mean, yeah, in general, right?
in general, yeah, I think it's probably one of the
Yeah,
best places to be in if you're building a company, irrespective of what kind of company you're
yeah,
building. Like that's like a lot of the a lot of the advice we got from like Y Combinator founders as well was basically the same thing. Like a lot of it's like a common pattern among like really successful companies that all of these guys took like this massive leap of faith and just moving to Silicon Valley and just like
hmm,
with no plan whatsoever, and then it just somehow end up being
yeah,
successful. It's pretty cool actually.
yeah. I call it the dreamland. Yep. And did that Swiss startup influence your decision of starting a Bitcoin company? Like the fact of having worked in a fintech startup before, did that influence you?
Yeah, definitely. So like so the company I was working with did like at the time when I was working there, like they had a component of the platform that involved the blockchain, not specifically Bitcoin, but that kind of exposed me to the entire technology and then like kind of like I just went down the rabbit hole of like really understanding like a lot more about the internal technicals of Bitcoin and specifically for the problem that I wanted to solve, like Bitcoin just seemed to be the best bet to do it, and we still stick with it.
Yeah, like, yeah, I have a question that why Bitcoin and not other cryptos? Yeah.
Well, so there's a lot of I mean, I think this is a very, like in this space, that's a very opinionated answer. Like a lot of people have very strong opinions to and for other cryptocurrencies. Specifically for us, Bitcoin is basically like it's like the early days of the internet. So it's like the father of all cryptocurrencies. And there's, in our opinion, in my opinion, I don't think there's really any other cryptocurrency that does all the things that Bitcoin does, and specifically has the presence and the liquidity across various markets that Bitcoin does, right? I mean, like for example, Ethereum and a couple of other cryptocurrencies solve different problems for different markets, and they're more useful for different purposes. But specifically for the use case of like global payments, that the one that we want to solve, Bitcoin is probably the best suited to do so.
Cool. And yeah, and now that Elon Musk, I mean, not Elon Musk, Tesla just bought a bunch of it. Now, yeah, it looks better, huh? It looks promising. Yeah. And so, yeah, how was the, the process of building the startup, like the team, how did you find your co-founder? You have a co-founder, right? Yeah. How did you find the co-founder and the whole team? Yeah. How did you build it?
Well, like I guess like the first like 2 to 3 years of the company was like we were still figuring a lot of stuff out, and most of it was just like it was just myself, mostly myself, doing all that stuff. Like last year in 2020, I met some, like when I was at Berkeley, I met this really kick-ass dude. Like he was a business student at the Haas School. I mean, he was just graduating from the Haas School of Business, completing his MBA, and he just worked with me for like a couple of months on on a side project. But then as he was graduating, he kind of just asked me like, hey, do you have like a full-time position available? And one of our advisors at Berkeley kind of said like, if you think this guy is like super smart, just why don't you just make him like an offer to be a co-founder? And I did. And he ended up rejecting like a sponsorship from McKinsey to pay for his MBA, and like a full-time job offer from McKinsey, like to take this massive leap of faith in joining the company. And it's just been an absolutely wild ride since he's been on. Like it's like we just complement each other so well, and like we have like a solid business team, a solid tech team, and like we have this like a lot more structure in the company. It's starting to look like a real company now, as opposed to like just doing stuff on a daily basis.
Wow, that's pretty cool. How many people are you guys in the company?
Right now we're a total of 5 people. So it's myself, my co-founder, and 2 developers, and 1 intern we have in Peru.
Okay. Intern. Yeah. Like, is it smart to hire interns? Like,
I think it really depends. I mean, since we have access to UC Berkeley, like the quality of interns is really, really high. Like we found like really smart people come out of there, and some of them work. Some of them do like really valuable work for us, and some of them are kind of like busy with college as well. But one way or the other, like I think like specifically this one intern that we have right now in Peru, like this guy's amazing. He's not from UC Berkeley, but then he's just like a fantastic person he's about to graduate from university, and he really gets the company, loves the space, and like super passionate about his work. And like when you find people like that, it's very easy to make the decision like whether you want them on the team and you hire them or not.
And also there's the salary, the non-salary part, right? Also, and so you mentioned UC Berkeley. Are you guys, do you have any kind of relationship with them? Were you part of the, they have an incubator, right? Were you part of it?
Exactly. It's called Skydeck, and it's like jointly with the school. They have a fund that invests in promising startups, and they run a batch like twice a year. And we were part of that in 2019, and that's why like our Silicon Valley journey actually got like started from the beginning. And that's actually how we were like, we're super connected to the school, and like we have access to like all the resources the school offers, like professors, students, and whatnot. So,
and can you get funding from them, or that's not a thing?
Yeah, so they invest like $100,000 into every company they incubate, and they also have like a program that's like for that's non-funded, but then you can like just work out of the accelerator and like work on your idea.
Oh, so you guys got funded by them?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, cool. And that's pretty cool. And so, relating to the funding part, how was the first time you raised capital? I'm guessing that was the first time, or it was given to you.
No, so we actually raised funds like a year before that as well. Like
Okay.
we raised like a small pre-seed round of like $150,000, and this
Okay.
was, I think it was like that was, like probably one of the most exciting moments in my life. Like, not to say like that now it isn't, but like at that point because it was like completely new and like like a dollar figure of like $100,000 was like a massive number in my head. Like when like coming from like an Indian background, when you convert that, that's like a lot of money to do a lot of stuff, right? So, when we like our goal was to like first I came back to India and like I wanted to get back to Europe to continue building the company. And of course, we have these like visa issues. Like you can't just like as an Indian, I can't just move to a new country. So we started looking for like European investors that would help us get like a startup visa, which enables young entrepreneurs like live and work in Europe. So
Hmm.
we ended up onboarding like our first European investor in Eastern Europe who wrote us our first check, and we moved to Latvia to live and work there for like 3 months. And along with them, we also like raised a little bit of money from some Asian investors. That was like the entirety of the pre-seed round. And I mean, it was not an easy experience. Like I think it was just like we took it as a challenge, and it was just like a ton of fun. Actually, like we were like we believe in this idea so much, like, and we like just bombarded them with emails until they responded, and they're like, okay, like I mean, we actually like the team, and they ended up investing, and this, like to this day, they're like this like really great investors.
Wow. And yeah, but like, how is the process? Like, how do you find those investors? Like, yeah. How is the process of getting funded exactly? Like, yeah.
I think like now it's a lot easier for me. Like if I was to go start another company, like the process of doing that is completely different because like I've actually got like a pretty decent network of people that I've met throughout this journey, and like I would know like the right people to like email and like talk to and ask them about would you fund my company. But like back then, when I was basically like a college student, I didn't know any investors, like I didn't know any of the stuff. There are a couple of platforms, like specifically we use this platform called F6S, which is just like a list of like incubators, investors, and accelerators across the world. And like we kind of like zeroed in on like which ones are European, which ones are like focused on this particular part of our business, and like do we think we have a good shot of getting these guys to invest if we give them like the right like conviction, like we show them a good prototype, we show them the team, et cetera, and like we zeroed in on a couple of them, and yeah, our bets paid off.
Oh, cool. And so yeah, so let me go back to, so you went to Latvia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the Estonian E-residency? Have you heard of it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually an e-resident.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh, but that's just Estonia, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, because I was looking at it, some time ago, and I thought that was pretty cool. Can you explain where it is to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
like the e-residency is kind of like it's like a program for anyone around the world to like get this digital ID card that effectively lets you open and run an Estonian business. This doesn't mean that you can actually like move to Estonia or use that as like a form of residence to immigrate into the country, but then it lets you run a European business without having any link to Europe at all. So that was like super attractive for us, and like to this day we're still considering setting up like a subsidiary in Estonia, like specifically because of its crypto regulations and stuff. But like Estonia is like a super forward thinking country that's moved a lot of stuff completely digital. It has like really favorable tax laws, like good laws for founders, and like good, it's really building like a solid startup community. Like I wouldn't be surprised like if in like 10-15 years from now that was like analogous to Silicon Valley of Europe or something like that.
Oh, really? In such a small country, but yeah, and they're doing a pretty good job. Um, so I guess you decided to base the company here in Silicon Valley, because of the atmosphere. But otherwise, you would have gone there.
Well, no, I guess we still have like a subsidiary company in Latvia, like where we went first.
Oh,
Like the headquarters are in Silicon Valley, but then I think like as we like before we got into Berkeley, like that's when I realized like okay, like if we're like dead serious about building this business, like you said, they are like small countries, and the way they think is a bit different. So we wanted to build this like really grand, like we were like super ambitious, and we wanted to like either go like really big or fail really fast, right? So
yeah.
and like it's very hard to get investors in those countries to take like a massive bet on you. Like they would write small checks, or like they wouldn't get the idea. It was just way harder to convince them. So it was like very clear to us, like if we want to, like if we're serious about building this thing, we had to find a way to get to Silicon Valley, and that's how we actually reached out to Berkeley and kind of got in there.
Cool. Because on your website, I was looking at it before. It says something to euro, right? Bitcoin to euro. Is it?
Mhm.
Yeah. So your main operations are in Europe, I'm guessing.
As of today, yes. I mean, like I said, like we were completely focused on launching in Europe, and we still
Okay.
are, and we just launched in Europe actually. So
Okay.
like the next market we're looking at is the US or Asia.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So So you're operating from the US in Europe.
Exactly, through our subsidiary company. So we have like
Oh,
one.
okay. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. The links.
Mhm.
Cool.
It's like 24 hours of like uncertainty where you wait for them to give. Like if you get in, they actually call you up and tell you like, hey, you got in. We just waited for a while, and my co-founder got the call, and like that was just an awesome moment. And
wow.
And yeah, so I guess they took a big shot on us.
I guess those 24 hours were the worst hours, the worst day of your life, huh?
It wasn't worse. It was like just a ton of anxiety, you know, like we really, like we were prepared in our heads, like, oh man, like, I don't think we're good enough to get in. Like in our heads, we were like, it's a long shot. It's like a really, really a long shot. But then, there was a lot of uncertainty, like as it's always. But then it was like when we got that call, and then my co-founder called me, like that feeling was just amazing.